community is a means to an end. It's not an end. Many times, I want to build a community. No, let's see if community is a tool to build that connection. Sometimes, by the way, the community can be the tool to build the product.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumi Tech and sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Turing, Upwest Labs, and Hillel at Stanford. Building a community around your brand is not trivial. In fact, it's quite hard. And we have Mike Silberg here with us talking about his own experience, the challenges of it, and why it's so crucial. Meet Mike Silberg, founding partner at ISCL. Since 2002, Mike has worked with companies such as Rebull as a brand manager, at KPMG in the management consulting team, and at Wework as a community manager, but also SMBs, NGOs, and government. In 2017, he founded the ISCL Summit, International Startup Community Leader Summit, the event that had brought together over 500 startup community professionals from over 50 countries. The event spawned his agency, ISCL, also known as the ISCL Network, a decentralized community agency working with companies and organizations around the world. Mike Silberg, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you today?
I'm great, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about communities. We're going to talk about brands. We're going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about your own journey and how you've formulated your own thesis behind what it means for companies to interact properly with the world around them. You've founded also organizations like the ISCL, bringing together a lot of startups and a lot of people in the ecosystem to learn together. So, Mike, take me back a little bit. Walk me through your journey and the key milestones, reaching all the way to where you are today with your today's understanding of how companies should integrate with communities.
So I think it all starts, and it usually starts from a younger age. When I started all kinds of small businesses, and somebody asked me, and I was cleaning my father's car, and somebody came and said, "Can you clean my car also?" I was 10 years old, and I started a whole business, and the whole street was like my turf, and I started cleaning cars. So it starts with being a bit entrepreneurial and not being scared and taking really actions and always thinking big and thinking about growth and thinking what you can do even more and how to be better in what you do. So, and maybe the second milestone is when I was 17, 18, again, growth mindset. I knew I was going to draft to the Army. I said I want to go to the best unit I can, and I went for a pre-Army training for a whole year, which for many people sounds crazy. Training a whole year for a mandatory 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah, a whole year, 2, 3, 4 times a week. And I lived in a small town. I had to take, I need to, every training, I needed to hitchhike and take a 30-minute bus for every 1 hour and a half training. It would be like 3-hour, 4-hour journey every time for a workout, for a mindset session and stuff like that. And I really loved it. It was one of the most molding experiences of my life. Many of my values and things that happened to me are thanks, actually, I think, to my pre-Army training, which was focused on building me and building my mindset and building my ability in order to be accepted into special forces, which was, I was lucky enough to be accepted and finish a course in and still do my reserve service at. But the main thing that happened when we think about my career afterwards, the pre-Army training business is the worst business in the world. You know why?
Why?
100% churn in customers. 100% churn in customers. You know, all the customers leave. They go. Nobody comes back. Okay?
Nobody
and even if they would, it would be 3, 4 years later. So the pre-Army training is the worst business. You have one time that you use the customer and you will never. Universities, you can come back to an MBA. Anything else, usually you can think, even if you do it, you can do something, you can upsell. Pre-Army training, that's it. You did the Army, you don't need to pre-Army train anymore. So, and it was really hard. And he was the first, I think, in Israel in his field. He's already 36 years around. That was like the 16th class, 16th year. And I said, listen, you know, we're getting to the end of the year. And how is it going to grow next year? And I knew how it grows, you know, word of mouth, and people knew about it, and people who were looking for it. The internet started. I'm that old. It was the beginning of this century. But it was mostly people from word of mouth, and people knew about it. And he started with like 5, 10 people. And in our group, there were about 80 or 100. So
Wow.
that was the beginning, and said, why do you wait so long until the end of the year and hope the word of mouth will work? And yes, he advertised and everything, but we advertised in the last minute. Said, listen, we're all very passionate about what you're giving us and about the journey you're taking us in. Let's tell that journey. And I said that started before. And what I did, I took a group of 4 or 5. We weren't alumni yet, but we were people that already went through the big part of the training and were already accepted to the units we wanted to be accepted for. And I did a panel. And I took that panel and I sold it, free. And I went to all the high schools in the region, to 30 different high schools, and said, listen, do you want me to bring 4 youngsters that were part of Army pre-training and were accepted to Special Forces, Pilots Course, Naval Academy, to come and tell them about how it is to do a year pre-Army training? And without, of course, advertising or anything. But of course, all the stories are from the place I came from. And I did that in 30 schools. And, we were all happy and we were like panelists. It was a meetup, the year 2001, 2002. And a 17-year-old sells this thing to all these people. And when the year started, usually in the beginning of the year, you have more people and you have a churn during the year, that people that don't stick to the pre-Army training because it costs money and you need to come and you need to commit.
Right.
But he started my year with about 250, 270 people. Usually it would grow 10% every year. The following year, when we did that campaign, which was that was the putting it into people's mind. And what I did, I took all the alumni, and I did it every year, but I managed it like an army operation. I took all the alumni, I created like a pre-recruiting session about how we would go to the schools and everything, and recruit the next generation. And it worked. And in the first training of the year, there was 550 people, more than double. He had like 80 people when we were there, 270 if you want to compare. And the next year was 550. Jumping almost 4 years later, I finished my Army training. And the first thing I want to do is do my SATs, my to exams that we do in Israel in order to accept to university. And I knew I had to get a very high score, 725, which is a story of itself. I went to the counseling office and asked how much do I need to get accept automatically for economics and accounting, and they told me 725. And I said, okay, I'm going to get that score. And I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to find a security job working at nights that I don't watch TV and don't be distracted. And in those times, I'm going to study 8 hours a day while getting paid. And suddenly, after I do all that, the guy calls me and he knows I finished the Army service. Says, hey, Mike, you remember what we did? I said, of course. Said, now I'm going to open 10 centers. He only had one then. We're going to jump from 1 to 10 branches and you're going to lead this. And I was 22. And I said, okay. I said, listen, what's your price? I said a price per hour that was double the minimum wage. For me, it was huge. I said, great, you write your hours and you recruit like you did last time. Take all the alumni and try to work with them to bring the next generation and open these 10 branches. And that's what we did. We opened 10 branches. And that became my summer job because he does it only once a year, for 6 years. And every year, of course, we were better and better and better. And that was like part of my beginning of the career. I didn't call it then a community. I didn't understand about it's what we call today, as a more professional person who works with communities, we call it leading without authority. I wasn't their boss. They didn't get paid. It was all about me tapping into their inherent let's call it their appreciation of what they got, their inherent like of the brand, their connection to the brand, their understanding, their gratefulness. That was the word I was looking for. Them being grateful for what they achieved. And that's what I say. Today, brands have to have a multi-level, and people know it, but they don't really execute it. They need to have a multi-level brand connection with their customers, potential customers, and the people around them, because that's the multi-level connection. And the multi-level connection says, I don't just, you give me money and I give you a service or a product. I give you much more than that. The problem is, by the way, that many brands or many people that start a business think about the things around more than the core value. And that's a mistake. Community is a means to an end. It's not an end. Many times, oh, I want to build a community. No, let's see if community is a tool to build that connection. Sometimes, by the way, the
Right.
community can be the tool to build the product. Okay? But many, many times people confuse the means to an end to the goal itself. And not every time it's work. And many times I try out customers. And that's why, by the way, my business model, I do 3 stages and say, let's start a stage of strategy. I call it initial analysis. Let's do a sprint of strategy. It's not the final strategy. It's just, what we would do and see if it works well. And see if community strategy is a good thing for you. The mistake companies do, say, okay, we're going to do community. I see everybody's doing community. Let's open a community. Let's start hiring. 3 months process, hiring somebody, and then say, okay, you have background in community, you built a community, now build our community strategy, get everybody on board, make everybody work for free, work for, from the team that's, already overloaded, and it's the last thing on the top of their head to start helping the community manager, the new guy in the office, and the customers that right now, why should I help you? And that's the thing. The process of building community is a process for people running marathons. It's a thing of, you need to tap things slowly. And that's like exactly my story. You put the story, you start building it, you cultivate those people, and then you see it grow more and more.
I think that the way that you're talking about your background, you're starting off with jumping into a community that you don't even know that it's a community. You just understand that there is a huge power in this idea of ambassadors and this idea of people that are way beyond a transactional relationship with the brand. It's really a personal relationship, personal advocation. It's sort of taking this idea of word of mouth, but extracting it to its really core essence, which is all about trust. It's all about relationship building. It's all about friendship, and I think that bring that now to the real world and companies. And what I'm hearing you say is that right now in 2021, we see almost every company trying to create a community, but it might not be for the right reasons. And if you don't do it authentically, and if you just do it as a means to an end, then it's not a real community. It doesn't have the same network effect as what you had in that Army pre-training course, which sounds to me like a perfect case study for what it means to build a strong community, right?
Totally. And I think you touched a point that's very confusing to most of the people, because it is. Because we used to having, okay, one goal. And when I built the community strategy, I created some kind of graph that I said, how meaningful is it for the company? How meaningful is it for the community? And and the size of the impact, a 3-dimensional graph. And that's the thing, because we need to find where the most high level value is for both sides. So it's not just having a means for an end, because yes, community should be a means for an end, for the end of the company. But you have to understand that it should be a means to an end also for the customers. It doesn't matter. It's not always customers. It can be much more than that. And you have to trickle down and show. And as you said, there's a methodology we built, which we call the community peaks. You can't jump to Everest. You can't become a community. There's a path and all kinds of levels you have to go. The first thing in the community peaks model is creating a shared identity. Okay, we call it PLM, people like me. The feeling that, people that we have shared values, that we know we want to work together. I can do a whole lecture about just the PLM effect and the idea that we feel that people are similar, but it leads us to the next part about trust. And then also we found there's a great book called Trust Agents, and talked about how you build trust online and offline. And there's a whole formula about how to create trust that we use a lot. And it's not that we know how to use the formula with every community. With every community, we see what part of the formula has a bigger factor, and then that's the factor we use. And the factor that we choose in building trust is what's available, how do we want to move trust, what affects the people in the target audience we affect. And then we start moving what we call sharing, which sharing is what we say is giving without feeling you lost anything. Okay, when you and then we talk about reciprocity. Reciprocity is a longer term value of saying, listen, I love helping you. or like being a mentor because I know I was helped before. And that's the cycle, the spiral of creating more value and more value and more value. And companies who build communities become addicted. One of the companies that helped build the community is KPMG, accounting firm, very gray, very dull. And what is community? You think about accountants, you don't think about of a huge heart, you don't think about colors, you don't think about an emotional connections. And the story there is that one of the market
Yes.
one of the marketing team, I'm alumni of KPMG, and I'm going to give a few pointers about my Steve Jobs connecting the dots about that story 20 years ago was only the beginning. Okay. At KPMG, we were asked to build a strategy to build a startup ecosystem or economic high value ecosystem for Beersheba. Today, everybody knows about Beersheba Cyber City, but that was something me and my team and the management consulting team at KPMG wrote. And then today, the prime minister says it and everybody says it, and it became a reality. It was written when the cyber park in Beersheba was a bunch of sand. That's it. And the somebody from the marketing team knew me and was following me in my blogs and writing about community. Said, listen, I'm right now on maternity leave and I want to build a community. And I told them that I'm only coming back from the maternity leave if they let me part-time work on building a community. Long story short, she built an alumni community. The effect of the alumni community of KPMG, bringing more traffic, bringing more work, recommending new employees, there's so many levels of value it created. Suddenly, they created also, and it became a full-time job, and she created a student community, the people studying accounting to find the best talent. So it's a talent acquisition community. And suddenly, the employees, so they created an employee community, employee community is very interesting because you can't do an employee community that's exactly like the company. So they found a sub-community called the lecturers within KPMG. People of which are opinion leaders already lectured in universities. And then you create something that's strong and they're more connected and they become the advocates of KPMG as part of KPMG. So there's so many stories happening within, but that's like me at KPMG in 2011 until 2013 and jumping back in 2018 when they reached out for me to help them was that strategy. So while I was a student, even before, there was a competition, Red Bull. You remember Red Bull?
Of course.
Of course, they used to have drinks in Israel. Today, you barely find Red Bull. But Red Bull used to have 94% of the Israeli market. It's the whole story how they lost the market. But it used to be very big. It's huge. And if you remember, in 2009 and 10, there was all these crazy events that Red Bull would do. And they still do around the world. Flugtag and Softbox. And if you think about these events, what's unique about those events of that brand and other events of other brands? Okay? Even if you take up things like the Tel Aviv Marathon, which is sponsored by Samsung, which is kind of cool to the community because they're helping them create a marathon. But I don't feel any connection to Samsung. Okay? I don't do anything. I come and I run and I train for myself and I do something alone and I leave. When you think about softbox or Flugtag, if you remember, in Flugtag, you needed to build an airplane as a team and fly off a bridge and see how far you get into like the pond in Tel Aviv. And softbox was in Jerusalem. You had to create this softbox group and you had to grow down. Now think about the experience that connects you. In order to build a community, you need to do an experience that's really transforming, that creates and builds, first of all, the PLM. We all together have built something, even though we're all unique, we're all different. In PLM, we have huge diversity, but we still have something very clear in common. We all worked a few months, invested money, time, ingenuity into building something. And all the people that were teams in Flugtag and Software were connected, and there's something stronger to connect the brand around. And those events people still remember even a decade next. And me as a student brand manager at Red Bull said you have zero money, you have a few girls with cars, and as much Red Bull you want to give for events as you can. And my job was to create events with the student community, okay, in the southern part of Israel, with all the universities and colleges in the region, based on them. And almost with zero budget, I created a huge brand awareness of Red Bull during my student year, which was amazing. I had a part-time job that paid really well, and all I did was give free Red Bulls and create really cool parties. And that's utilizing, and that's the power of community.
Mike, it sounds like this job. It's like a dream job.
And that's just a bit. So and nobody called it a community, but all that things of harnessing the people around you and the resources around us that are there, the passion around us that is there, the people that have already, the need, the common needs, the common desires, the common, interests. That's the people you need to find, cultivate, create. But it's a marathon, as I said before. So that's a bit of that. There's a few parts. I know we're a 20-minute leader session, so I'm going to stop now. And if you have a few questions or if you want me to continue a few points on the journey, we can continue it soon.
Mike, I think we have to do a few more episodes to try and cover the breadth of what it is we're talking about here. We didn't even get to some of the main things that I had written down that I thought of, but I'm so glad we didn't, because these stories are exactly the stories that I'm looking for in the show. So thank you very much for taking the time to share that, and I just loved it, and I'm personally taking away so many insights from this. I have 3 last questions that I want to ask, and I'll ask the 2 of them first. First one, who is one of your role models, and what is your favorite subject in school K to 12?
Great. So role models. So I have a lot of role models, and I'm going to say only a few, because what I understood, I always felt I'm not good enough. I'm very, very critical about myself. And what I always did is, and today I use a lot of AnyDo to do that, and I said, what am I lacking? I was always very enthusiastic. And it was a problem because kids sometimes, if you're too enthusiastic, it's like, whoa, you're weird. Like, be cool. And I found when I was in one of my jobs, I was still at this issue that I was too eager. I'd write as an employee, I would write like very long emails. I was like, and some people around you don't feel it. And I found something in my work at one of the VPs, that was very cool. He looked like the Pink Panther. Like he had this smooth, very chill, and I said, and I got close to him. His name was Erez Harari. It doesn't say anything. But for me, role models weren't the great people that you think about. It's the people I could connect, the people I would rub off on, and then really learn from. So if I think on a larger scale, by the way, I'm going to be very, very obvious. Elon Musk, okay? And what I like to think about that is it's not about the money. It's about the adventure. If you think what I take from Elon Musk, it's about hard working, understanding it's not about, you have to work hard. The second, by the way, he has 6 kids. He doesn't forfeit his family. He cares about his family. By the way, I saw a video about him. He takes his kids every morning to school. So 2 things that's very important. First of all, and that's, I think, is how you need to think also about your business and building communities. It's not about the money. It's about the journey. It's about, where you want to go. And once you have such strong convictions and things, and such big challenges, all the rest is peanuts. And all the other challenges along the way don't matter because you have an end goal that you want to go through. And he put all his money, after he got all the money from PayPal, in his 3 new ventures that are supposed to change the world. And that's where I think companies should go and think about how they can also change the world and also understand the values of hard working and, on the other hand, being with your family and having some kind of balance. And regarding my school, so I was always good with math and accounting and all that kind of stuff. I loved the challenge thing, but it was actually also totally big on history. And when I was in high school, I wanted to major in it. So I majored in physics and in economics. And I wanted to do it. Economics wasn't a full major, so you had to do it with something. I wanted to do it with history. Said no, it's the same time as physics, so you have to go with sociology. And that was my luck, that I studied by accident sociology, which was super important and super connected to economics. So economics and accounting was something I was always very big in. So since I was 8, my father said I would read the financial reports from Globes and read the stocks like I was 8, 9, and started investing at a very young age and started to understand it. And I love the numbers and going up in trends. And I loved economics. And when I was older, I heard Professor Daniel Uman talks about economics, and he was asked to explain economics in one word. And he said incentives. And economics is exactly what creates and connects psychology, people understanding people, which is what I loved and I didn't understand. That's history. History is understanding people. It's understanding human behavior. It's stories about people. And the other side of equations, economics, and creating that. And that's what we try to do. We call it community engineering, to understand and to tap into what are the different formulas and structures of human behavior, human needs, and try to put them into kind of an equation, even though it's organic and changes. And one of the brilliant things about history, Yuval Noah Harari speaks about a lot, we could never predict history because it's like the chaos theory. A small move of the butterfly in one side of the earth creates a tornado in the other side. And that's why all this together creates economics as a main interest that's built on math and psychology.
I love it. And Mike, very quickly, 3 words that you would choose to describe yourself. What are those 3 words?
Passionate, powerful, and grateful.
I love it. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I know how busy you are. Thank you for sharing with me your insights all the way from your childhood, from understanding, hands-on practically what is a community and what is the power of relationships and trust, and then extrapolating that more to bigger brands and companies today and how they're working. We have a few more episodes to do together on the other endeavors that you have. But until then, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure being on your show.